This is Swarfcast. I'm Noah Graff. I am very honored to have Paul Huber, CEO and founder of Comex in Connecticut. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Glad to be here.
Thank you. I've known Paul a long time from the PMPA Association and being also in the machine tool business. Just to get started, I want to give people just a little background. What is Comex? So they have a little context.
We're a machinery dealer of conventional machine tools, mainly Swiss cam automatics.
All right.
In other words, we are on the way out because less and less people use those machines.
Right. Everybody, a lot of people listening to the podcast know CNC Swiss, but there would be no CNC Swiss if there was not cam Swiss.
It's the evolution, and I personally was directly involved with somebody who put the first computer on a machine, on a conventional machine, got the motors and everything, and came out with a machine which properly worked as a CNC machine.
That's really interesting. What machine was that?
Futuristics.
That's the name of the machine, Futuristics?
Yes.
And was it from Switzerland?
No, right up in Waterbury. A gentleman a very sharp engineer did that.
Very interesting. Okay. So you sell Swiss machines, you rebuild them, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Which ones in particular? Eskamatics?
Well, I'm really specialized in Becklers.
Becklers. Okay.
And then Tornos and the Stroms. But that's what we have today. And then obviously the Escamatic.
Okay.
Because there I had a 6 months internship at ESCO where I got to know the inside and out of it.
How long ago was that?
In 65.
Aye. Okay. So, all right, Paul, you have a very fascinating journey. We're going to talk about several fun things in this interview. You have a lot to say, I know, about skills in the United States as far as manufacturing and machining. And before I get to that, I think people ought to know a little bit more about you. So here's a blunt question. How old are you?
84, they say.
They say. And you don't feel 84?
No.
How old do you feel about
60?
60.
Yeah.
All right. If you had said 16, I would have gone, I don't know.
No. That's my son. He's 16 or 17. He's going to be 17 in a few weeks.
So you're 84 years old. You feel 60. You have a 16-year-old or 17-year-old son. You can't remember. Does having a 16 or 17-year-old son make you feel younger? Or is it other things that make you feel younger?
Definitely, because when we adopted him, it's from my wife's family from the Philippines. Okay. One of her relatives offered us the son when he was 6 months old.
Wow.
So.
And I thought I was old when I had a son at 42.
Yeah. But anyway, he's the kind of tiny kid walking behind me. Anything I touched, Dad, can I do that? So I let him do it. So a job which took me 10 minutes before, it took me an hour or two. It doesn't matter. The kid learned. He learned all kind of stuff.
So. That's fantastic. I hope that my son Abe has the same. I mean, he does follow behind me right now, so it's a good start.
Yeah.
Okay, so as people can hear on this, you have an accent. You are from Switzerland, correct?
Yes, sir. Yep. I'm from the German-speaking part of Switzerland.
All right. No offense to the French part of Switzerland, but I always definitely like the German part of Switzerland way better when I visit. The,
Well, I
I find the
had
French people are kind of, uh, I don't know, they're not French, but they're putting their nose up a little bit. And I find, yeah, Zurich, Basel. You're from Basel?
yes,
Great places.
yes. That's where my jazz was famous.
Your jazz was famous.
My involvement in the jazz music, yes.
Okay. We're going to get into that. I can
Yeah.
totally understand though, because when I was in Basel for looking for machines nearby, uh, there was salsa dancing there. So I think it's still kind of like a hip place. Um, so you grew up in Basel. You're born in 39.
39, yes,
Look at
sir.
that math. And you got involved in the trades. You were raised into that, would you say?
My dad, we were seven kids, insisted that each one of us learns a trade
Okay.
as an apprentice.
Okay.
I was in the music business as a manager, made sometimes more money than my dad, but he still insisted that I take an apprenticeship.
Okay. So when did you take the apprenticeship and when were you working in the music business and how did you get into that? First, you were an apprentice, correct?
At age 17, I started my apprenticeship.
Okay. And in what? Tool and die manufacture?
No, setup on maintenance on everything else related to Swiss screw machining. I was very lucky because the company which hired me as an apprentice needed somebody in the tool room. So my first 6 months were actually working in the tool room.
How did you feel about it? Did you really like it?
Well, that's the thing. I took that position only because I had my dad behind me, ready to kick me in the behind. So I made the decision. Okay, that's a job like just any other job I have. Well, I'm gonna find. And within 6 months, I was hooked, and it became a real challenge
Interesting. So what did you love so much about it?
because I was able to catch up with my masters. I got my compliments. I could see the difference. We had two more apprentices there. For whatever reason, I had the ability of picking up very fast.
Hmm. Was your father in metalworking at all, or
He was a farmer,
he was a farmer?
but again, he learned a farmer. He worked with some farmers, and I can tell you, my highest respect of him came after a phone call of a farmer and told my dad he has to come and help him in a problem birth of a cow. And my dad says, no, no, you have to call the vet. And this is, yeah, that's what the vet said. He said, call Franz Huber. He'll take care of it. I'm too busy. I can't come.
Wow.
So, yes, I was a little boy, but boy, was I proud of my dad.
I'm picturing one of those Swiss cows too with the the classic. Um, so you went into um, manufacturing to Swiss machining, and then then what happened? Somehow you caught the jazz, but how does that lead to jazz? Or am I skipping something?
No, actually, You ever heard of Armed Forces Radio during the Second World War?
I have.
Okay. They had played lots of jazz. And I was born right next at the border to Germany. So I had very good reception of the Armed Forces Radio. And I listened to jazz there, and it stuck with me.
But the
My
Germans didn't
dad,
the Germans didn't play jazz, did they?
no,
No, it
no.
was the
But
Americans.
armed forces, that was more for the entertainment of the soldiers,
Mm,
of the troops. Okay, it wasn't directed to the Germans, it was directed to the troops.
fascinating. Okay, so you heard the armed forces jazz and you were, I mean, like 4 or 5 years old.
Yes,
And
yeah.
and th then what happened?
It got stuck.
So, basically
So,
the rest, after the war ended, you just kept listening to jazz and were
yes. And we moved to Basel. And after I moved to Basel, I found friends who were musicians, amateurs and semi-professionals, and I hung out with them, jam sessions, all the time. And I got on their nerves. They said, Paul, you do nothing. We wouldn't want you to sing. We wouldn't want you to play. Why don't you get out there and get us some gigs?
Did you try to play? Did you try to learn an instrument?
I'm sure, but forget it. No, didn't work.
Okay, so they said, "All right, if you wanna hang out with us, get us some gigs."
Yep. So they were, most of them were 3, 4, 5 years older. So when you're 17 years old or thereabouts, you respect age much more than, when you're older.
Yeah.
So I looked up to them. So I said, oh, okay, I have to go and find something. And I went by a place I know they have dances and concerts. So I had the nerve to go in there and ask if I could rent a hall. And the guy looked at me and sure. You know, I looked in his book and gave me a date.
So all you had to do was ask.
That's right. But you see, uh, my being with my father, who was on the sideline, buying and selling livestock,
Hmm,
horses and cows and everything else, go with him to the farmers. I knew how to approach people. I knew how to speak with people.
interesting.
You know, it's like you learn from your dad too. You
Definitely.
know, that's the same thing. I was people. Became a people person because of him, because the way he treated his customers.
That's interesting because, if people didn't actually hear the details, they'd think, "Oh, farmer, solitary." Like you don't think people but he's a farmer, but also a business person.
Yes, absolutely, he was. But from there, I went to Coca-Cola, distributor of Coca-Cola,
Okay.
had poster printed. I went to the local newspaper, see if I can get some rebate for beginning just in the business. And they gave me a good rebate for my first ads.
So wait, you wanted to sell Coca-Cola?
No, Coca-Cola printed my posters for free.
Ah, for the posters for
Jazz
promoting the
post.
jazz
Yes.
because they would just put like Coke on them.
Yeah. You know, on the bottom, a line of Coke. And then I went from store to store, restaurant to restaurant, and hung them all over Basel. On my bike, I went from one to the other.
That sounds like an
The end result,
amazing experience.
the end result, 560 people the first time. It blew my mind, but it worked.
Wow.
So my musicians, they couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it either.
Okay, so all this time that now several years you're working as a manager, what happened to working with Swiss machines? Are you doing both at the same time?
Oh yes, that was just a sideline.
Okay.
After I finished, I have to tell you that I'm proud of it. I came in second in our class in ability. I went in the military service. All Swiss have to go, the Swiss men. Now the Swiss women too, most of them go.
That's always interesting to me since you guys are always neutral. But I guess if you're neutral, you have to have a good army.
Yeah. I learned how to be a small arms mechanic and anti-tank gun.
Wow. Interesting.
So that was interesting.
Does Switzerland still have mandatory military?
Absolutely. Oh, yes. And you want to go in the service, because if you don't go in the service, your taxes are so high for not going to the service. You can, you don't want that.
That's interesting. Okay, so you're doing Swiss machining and you are a manager for a jazz group
Yeah.
and you're what in your early 20s?
20, yeah,
20.
20,
And then what?
going to okay, going on to 21. So for a year, I worked as a mechanic, machinist, toolmaker in a company which made vessels and all things for the chemical industry. You heard of Hoffmann La Roche, Sando, Ciba-Geigy, Novartis, right?
I've heard of Novar's.
Novartis.
Yeah.
Okay. They're all on the Novartis now, basically. Okay. In fact, Novartis is right now setting up Sando as an independent again. So I did that. I got the job because they needed somebody right away, because one of the uh, guys got called into the service and they didn't have a replacement right away. I was not very good. Okay. So when the guy came back 9 or 10 months later, the boss told me, "You have been doing very well for the circumstances, but we have to let you go." Didn't matter,
Okay.
because I learned there a tremendous amount. I did welding, I did all kind of stuff. Never would have been able to do that. So didn't matter to me at all.
And you're only 21 or 20
Yeah.
and so then what'd you do?
I went, I said to Miles, I failed French in school. So I said, maybe I should go to work in the French part of Switzerland. At least I learned French. And I went to Beckler,
To Beckler.
yeah, in Moutier.
So for the people who aren't familiar, Tornos Tornos bought Beckler eventually. What is Tornos versus? Okay,
Yes. Beckler, Peterman, and Tornos, they all started the business in Moutier, in the same town.
Swiss machining mecca.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So they started there. Which was the first one? Beckler,
Uh, Tornos.
Tornos.
Yes.
And when did they consolidate? So Tornos bought Beckler when?
Back in the 70s.
Oh, back in the 70s. What about
Yes.
Peterman?
They absorbed bought Tornos before that, even Beckler.
Okay.
But they did not, you know, Tornos never had the intention to continue the business. Peterman or Beckler, the same thing.
Okay. But weren't so I don't even really know much about Peterman, but Beckler, they were making cam Swiss machines, and Tornos was making cam Swiss machines. So
Uh, yeah.
was the technology pretty similar?
Yes, Tornos was really specialized for the watchmaking business. They they really were looking to build smaller machines and better precision, higher precision than Beckler. Beckler was more for uh, all the way around.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Job shops.
Yes. For example, the shaft in your blender, the drive shaft in your blender, is made in the Swiss. Okay. When I came to this country, I set up some machines at uh, in Rochester Products. You know, the the
Yeah, that sounds
uh,
familiar.
Rochester products, the what do you call the oil and gas, the gas mixer and air mixers, the carburetors.
Okay.
I set up machines there to make the carburetor needle. I don't know if you've ever seen a needle. It's about this long, 2 inches long, and it has a taper in a certain way and fashion to modulate the gas input into the carburetors.
Okay. Interesting.
I went to GE up in New Hampshire where they made the electric meters. And we sold, Beckler had sold them machines to make the drive shaft for the electric meter.
But these parts, just so I can confirm, these are still really tiny diameter parts.
Yes.
Okay. So they're not watch parts, but I mean,
No.
they specialize in it's the same kind of category of, you know.
Yeah. In fact, both Tornos and Beckler got into 1 inch machines, for example, much later in their business.
Sure. Sure.
The first thing was the 7 millimeter, you know, quarter-inch maximum capacity. That was basically all they built in the beginning.
And what's funny is still like if it's a Swiss machine, the 10 millimeter, at least with the decos, the 10 millimeter is still the most popular.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so okay, so you were working for Beckler, and then is that that's how you came to the United States?
No, you see, I have to say that I am not better than anybody else, but I was always at the right time at the right place.
Serendipity, as I love to talk about.
I was setting up machines, and the customers came in, and when they were Germans, they had nobody on the floor who knew German. So I took care of the German-speaking
And
customers.
this is in the French part of this is in Moutier.
Yes, yes. So for me, it was no big deal. Okay, with the music business behind me, my dad's teaching, was able to deal with those customers. It didn't matter who he was.
Interesting. Switzerland is fascinating. I mean, I how these all the people in the French part didn't speak German. Do you think back then and even now, do you think more people in the French part or more people in the German part speak French than French people in the French part speak German?
Always.
I That's kind of what I figured. It's still I think it's like Canada too with the Quebec and I
Yeah. Well, Canada. Uh, I think the majority of the English-speaking Canadians don't really have much respect of the French-speaking Canadians.
uh
Truthfully,
okay, so you think the French speaking Canadians have more respect for the
no. The other vice versa.
neither of them like each other.
I can testify to that because my first wife was French Canadian Indian. My first wife was a Huron
Oh,
Indian,
wow, okay. Native American.
native from Quebec.
Very interesting.
Her relative was the chief. I met him too.
I'm sure you had a very interesting serendipitous story about
I
that.
had I had a wonderful time there. Except it took me some time to understand their French because you see that French was brought by the first arrivals from France, which got stuck there, right? And there were very few French people coming thereafter. So it became an old language. It did not renew like you listen to people 40 or 50 years ago in the US. We are speaking different today. Okay, there is 100 years almost. All right.
That's really interesting. I always wondered why their French was sort of different.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and then you look at German. I mean, there's like 3 or 4 kinds of German, and like that really gets confusing.
You go to Switzerland, they're all German speaking, but uh, every 40, 50 miles, they talk in a different way.
Like, could you go to Germany with your Swiss German and communicate well?
Yeah.
Okay, so then you got to know some German customers in Moutier, and then what? What happened?
Well, management needed to send somebody to the US, because Beckler had a division here for sales and service. And they lost some people and they needed to send somebody.
Okay, and you wanted to go immediately?
Well, not really. Not really. I wasn't ready to leave my musicians behind. But the boss in the US was in Switzerland, and he spent a few days in the assembly section and setup section. And I think he looked around who is doing what,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and who is talking or whatever else. It was his choice for me to go there. And I played hardball. I truthfully played hardball. I didn't really want to go. But I finally got on the condition 4 days in Paris. Come, come over on the France. It was her third voyage. I don't know if you remember, the France was very famous uh, ship. It became the Norway, the cruise ship Norway.
Oh,
After
Norwegian cruise.
Yeah, but it was the France. It was a French
They
ship.
didn't.
It was the pride of France.
They didn't. They weren't flying you over there back then.
No, they're just starting of flying with props.
Yeah,
No chest yet.
yeah. You probably would have rather just gone that way.
So when I arrived here, the boss here said to me, Paul, how were you able to manage a trip to Paris and coming over on the France? I says, well, I pushed for it. He says, it cost us a lot of money. We had to pay for it. The division, they couldn't care less. It was what they just sent me.
So you came here, and then you worked more for Beckler, and then
Yeah.
that eventually, what happened then? Then you went off on your own.
Yes, for 3.5 years, I traveled in 35 states.
Wow, I haven't been to 35 states. Most Americans haven't been to 35 states.
I realized that. Right place, right time. I traveled, and what I did, I was single. When I had to go to Texas, I left the Friday night or Saturday morning so I could look around and, discover the US the way it should be discovered. And just about every tip I took like that, where I had to stay 3 or 4 days, I would manage to spend the weekend traveling around.
Yeah, that's the way I always try to do it when I get to travel for.
Now,
Yeah.
I can tell you the foundation of my knowledge on my business savvy and all that came from training other people who in turn shared their knowledge with me.
Ah.
And I can tell you that I, I certified to that.
The best way to learn something is to teach it to somebody else.
Yeah. The owners, talked business with me on everything, took me out for dinner or brought me home to their family. I don't know if you know Cox.
Yeah, Bill
Cox
Cox.
Manufacturing. His father took me. Sorensen, his father took me
Very
under
interesting.
their wings. I'm very proud for that.
Wow. Okay, so you learned from your customers from the manufacturing companies. You learned business from them.
I was ready to leave. I was at the company called Burndy, and they had a big contract for the 747 making connectors in Milford, just up the road from us. Milford, Connecticut, right on 95. And they just had purchased close to 60 Escomatics D6, and they hardly had anybody who knew anything about it. So I didn't know anything about it either. But anyway,
This is how long ago?
that was in 1965. The uh, manager, manufacturing manager, I told him I'm gonna leave now. That's the last day I'm gonna be here. I'm gonna leave, go back to Switzerland, and he says you can't leave. So well, it's the arrangements are all made. He said just hang on around, okay? Don't leave yet. Wait a minute, give me a few minutes, okay? He come back, he says, I got a job for you. I says, well, in Switzerland? He says, no, here. Uh, I said, all right, explain what's going on. Because he came out of the blue. He says, well, we bought those machines, which I didn't know. We bought those machines in Switzerland. We don't have anybody who knows how to design the tooling, maintenance, everything else, anything about it. We have nobody. We send you over there for 6 months. You get all the training and you come back here. And I knew that I had to push for salary. So we came to the conclusion of the salary. I told them to send half of my salary to Switzerland so I have a good living in Switzerland. The other half goes directly in my bank account.
Interesting. Was Escomatic that has that company been around a long, long time too?
Actually, yes.
So for people who don't know what an Escomatic is, it's I mean it's another type of screw machine. It's a bit of a slightly different animal. Why don't you give people the 30-second explanation?
Well, any screw machine, Brown and Sharp, whatever it is, the material rotates. On the ESCO, the tools rotate around the
Oh,
material.
so it's like a hydromat.
Yes, and they moved in and out with levers, and with cam operated, same thing. The feeding mechanism, same thing. Uh, and they, for many years, the maximum RPMs they were able to run was 6,000. They're up in the 8,000 RPM area now.
And of course the main characteristic people know is that they usually run coil.
They run coils, so depending what kind of a part is, the coil can last the whole week till
They just
you have to
they just
put
put
a
it on
new
a big
coil in.
spool and they leave it.
Yeah, and people with confidence and with good machines and with the part which is suitable for it run it 24/7.
So this was the first lights out, really.
Yeah, definitely it was. Yes.
That's interesting. I've learned that.
Yeah.
So then you started. You worked for Escomatic, okay?
I did my internship here, got paid from the American company who hired me, and I came back here for 2 years. I was a senior manufacturing engineer. Uh, I had a very good job. It was very challenging. I spent a lots of money for the company. I and I was very happy till I had a big program going. I changed all the gauging system at the company because they made connectors, um, hundreds of different type of connector, and every time somebody in design made a connector, they made the hole a few tenths this way or a few tenths the other way. So with every new collector, you had to get a new set of gauging for the depth and diameter on the OD and ID. And I had made a big plan on the wall showing each part on the sizes, so which one we can put together. And I had a draftsman and I had a technician who helped me on the project. And we were about halfway through. We already eliminated at least a quarter of the gauges because we were able to change it. Because it was not just changing, you had to change the drawing. Okay. And some cases they had to be reclassified too, because they were for military application. According to mil spec, they had to be. All right.
Okay.
Then they come to me, we're going to cut back. What kind of back? So, well, you're going to lose your two guys are working for you because we have to cut back.
And this is the 70s right now?
There was
60s?
68, 68.
68.
68.
68. Summer of Love. Okay.
And I said, all right. And I looked for somebody, money, to start my own company. I was pissed.
But again, right place at the right time. Serendipity.
I seen a tiny ad in the Wall Street Journal. Somebody looking for setting up a Swiss screw company. And I seen that. I just happened to see that. And I got in touch with the person. A Sorbonne graduate engineer who had a large corporation in New York, in the Bronx, no, Brooklyn. And he sold the company to his employees. And he was resting for a year or two, and he just couldn't stay away. So he was looking for somebody to start up another screw machine business.
Okay.
And I happened to be there.
Okay. So you started a production shop.
I started a production shop, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
From scratch. I did the design, suspended ceilings, airline for the air pressure lines, electrics, everything.
And then how did the production shop go, and how did that lead to Comex?
Uh,
It's like,
first of all, the background of selling the machines with Beckler, right? When I started up that production shop, I had to go out and find machines because, as you know, late 60s and 70s, there was a shortage of machine tools at that time. So I had to buy whatever was available. And in fact, interestingly enough, I got myself two Gorton Swiss automatics. I don't know if you know the Gorton milling machines
no.
and grinders up in Racine, Wisconsin. The War Department told Gorton that they have to copy the Peterman. And they built it, and they were successful. And in fact, like I said, I bought two of them, and we were able to get them going. They make good parts. We made parts for home light. We made the oil pump cylinder. That's the heart of any chainsaw. Without oil on the chain, forget it. The chain is going to go to hell in no time.
It seems like you find a lot of meaning in the stuff that the machines are actually making. Like, that's really important to you, the actual application of the parts. It's not just, well, this is an interesting part and we make it and they'll pay us X amount for it. It's you see it for more than that.
Well, any request of quote which came across my desk to me was a challenge. How can I make that faster than anybody else so I can sell it for the same price or a little bit lower?
Mm-hmm.
that was the automatic kind of approach. So I had to find out a way of doing that.
Sure. But each thing you're talking about it was going into the chainsaw or is going into the blender or like
Yeah.
I think there's something to that, probably, to doing your job better, maybe being more interested in what you're doing, knowing that it's going in.
Yeah, yeah. My heart was in it. My heart was also into impressing our customers that we are it. We can do it.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I think one of the biggest challenge was when the Atomic Energy Commission had a bid out to make the caps for the fuel rods out of zirconium, and they were an inch in diameter. And I looked at that and I found out what zirconium was all about and so forth. And we made a bid and we got the bid. And they used my security clearance because they needed somebody in charge with the security clearance. And I had that already to the work at Burnley. So we were successful. The product actually went into one of the government-owned facilities. They bought the machine and everything because they insisted that it has to be made inside. Period.
Hmm.
But to me, that was an achievement.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Then, obviously, like I said, I had to scour for machines, and you know,
I can relate to that.
wheeling and dealing with the musicians on that gave me the ability of getting around and get things done. The service engineer on the road for 3.5 years, the same thing. I had to make two some very often. So obviously, I realized there is money in repairing machines, buying and selling machines. So I had a son. He was Ted was stepson, who was like 14 or 15. And we started to sell machines, and we sold some machines to a company called Wasp Archery. They made the points, the hunting points, the ones with blades in it. You ever seen them?
No, but I know we sell machines to archery companies.
Yeah. So him and me, we rebuilt machines in the evening beside my work, my regular work, and that was it.
So what do you I've talked to a few other people who've kind of crossed over between production and rebuilding and buying and selling. What what do you like better, or you just like them both? What's a better business?
Buying and selling.
Yeah.
I mean, when I after 21 years, I had enough. I talked to my partner because I had by that time we had 2 or 3 CNC machines, and I realized I was making 3 times as much money with the CNC machines as with the CAM machines.
Mm-hmm.
And I have lots of headaches with 25 employees. So I told my partner I want to sell everything, get out of the business, start a new business, strictly CNC, somewhere with not more than 5 or 6 people.
And what year was this?
That was in the 80s,
Okay.
early 80s.
So early
Early 80s.
CNC in the
Yeah.
80s. Yeah.
We were one of the companies, first companies which bought CNC. They didn't even have a sub spindle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that was the beginning of the CNC age.
So these are like what kind of CNC lathes?
There were
Like
citizens. No, there are stars. I bought some star.
oh,
That was
okay. So
yeah,
the quote unquote Swiss CNCs.
yeah,
I see.
yeah, yeah.
Um, okay, so you're buying and selling used ones, and then how'd that lead to Comex?
Well, that was the foundation. There was Continental Machinery Exchange. Uh, I decided at that time also, when I rebuilt and so forth, I had to go to Switzerland and look for suppliers for the parts, because the backlog parts and Tornos parts were too expensive in some cases.
Hmm.
I thought so. I could get so I traveled to Switzerland and found some suppliers.
So you were selling mechanical machines as well.
Yes,
Did
yes.
you think? Did you find mechanical machines were a better niche than CNC machines?
No. Once I seen how advanced the CNC went, I know that's the end of the CAM machine is going to come. Right? When
Right, but it's
like I said,
50 years. It's 40 years later, and you.
you know, I can tell truthfully, I can tell that the whole world. My sales in the last 6 months is one third of what it was a year ago.
Wow.
Yeah, I know it's coming. You know, It's-
But why did
why?
you? When did you drop selling the CNC Swiss to focus on the Cam Swiss?
Well, we dropped uh,
Like when did you stop doing that one?
when I never got into the CNC per se. Okay, I bought and sold some, but I never really worked on them.
Okay.
Except when we run them in the shop. We had for about 4 or 5 years. We ran the CNC, but Ted, my son, my stepson, was very good on working on those machines. So we were able to provide a lots of services. With that came also I got hooked up with the Taiwanese manufacturers of lathes and milling machines.
Hmm.
And I sold lathes and milling machines in the US. The good way,
You
I don't know.
are an incredible networker.
The good way. I ever heard of good way, right? The good way lathes,
I've
they're
heard
very
of it.
good lathes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. We had that line for the whole East. We're selling them.
What do you prefer, selling new machines or used machines?
That was good way, but used. So we sold new lathes, milling machines, grinders.
Hmm. But do you
So
prefer selling used or new?
actually, it's a toss up,
Okay.
because when you sell a used machine, as you know, if something goes wrong,
Sorry,
most
you came and
customers,
you came and inspected it. This is the best I can do.
when when it was new and something goes wrong, all hell breaks loose, because I paid all that money and the thing breaks down.
Yes.
You know,
Yes. Well, I think that's part of our issue.
I
Um,
tell you what I learned selling Taiwanese machines. I went to Taiwan to take a look at the plant. Okay,
mhm.
and I got a tour of a beautiful facility, great inspection area, great assembly area, test run, and everything else. And then I said, Mr. Yang, where do you make the parts? Over there in China. Yes, they got an arrangement on there. They're not the only one. Okay, that's why China is so strong. They got arranged with the Chinese. They said, we put up the factory, we're going to get you the people. You're going to go to Europe, get the best possible machine. And you make sure that any trip you do, if you go 2 or 3, 1 or 2 is our people from our plant in China. They insisted when they went to buy the equipment that the Chinese had to be with them.
Okay. This is so they could steal the intellectual property?
Yeah. Then what they did is the Taiwanese had an agreement they will change the people every year. Uh, they will work there for a year and then come back and they send somebody else. And lots of the Chinese made machine tools were came through that or developed, because some of the machines I heard, I never seen them myself, but they said some of the machines came to China and they engineers took them apart and put them back
Of course they did.
together. Yeah.
Of course. Um, so now you can tell, at least with CAM Swiss machines, it's the game is over. Basically, this is the year where I mean, it's amazing that it's gone this far.
Yeah. 2 years ago, we were in 11,000 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
My uh, my stepson and I, we said, what should we do? Should we get now really push into CNC? We sold some, bought and sold some CNC. And I says, no, I don't feel like. And he says, well, I don't feel like either. So we're going to stick with the CAM conventional machine
Because
tool.
everybody's doing CNC. Everybody's doing it, and you don't want to do what everybody's doing.
So we're going to continue specializing in what we are doing right now. And if it peters out, well, then it peters out.
Yeah.
That's the way it's going to be. Uh, uh, I'm still here. I'm still very busy.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's petering out. There might be a resurgence. Who knows? I mean, I know the mechanical multi-spindle screw machines. There's definitely still a place for that. This is interesting because it kind of brings us up to something you're pretty opinionated about, which is the skills, and it also comes to what you plan on doing. So, what are you? You do not seem like the retiring kind.
No, no.
So, what's next for Paul?
Next, quite frankly, I wish I could say I really want to get into education.
You wish you could say.
Yeah. But I gave up hope, mainly because we do not have the material to make skilled people. We have lost the ability to educate our young people.
We meaning the United States.
The United States, okay? We are now in a situation where the majority almost of engineers are either foreign born and American educated or uh, uh, educated in around the world, Japan, Europe, and they come here. So we the major thing is anybody who's talking about education today has to keep in mind we hurt ourselves by maintaining the colonial way of educating.
Okay.
Each town or each city and each state has its own educational system.
Yeah.
Every state in this country has their own education department. And don't you dare touch it. That's ours. Why? That's the only thing states have left they can work with.
It's Thomas Jefferson.
Excuse me?
It's Thomas Jefferson. The states'
Yeah.
rights.
So, so now we have a situation where a third of the states, the achievement rate in high school is around 40 or 50 points. There's 3 or 4 organizations which come up with that measurement, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And they're all going the same direction. Then you have the middle states, they are in the 50 or 60, and then you have the last dude, they go up to 80, 60 to 80.
Okay. What do you mean by this score?
They have a scoring system. Okay, that's established basically by 3 or 4 organizations.
What are they scoring?
what they're learning, their capabilities at the end of the year.
So what specific things?
Math, reading, comprehension.
Mhm.
Uh, all these things are being taken into account. I am not involved with that in any way. I'm just look up the figures.
Okay.
It's frightening. If you would be an HR person and you have the choice of picking people from certain states, which state would you pick them from? Right, where the education is good. So we have 1/3 of the nation where the kids are penalized because their educational system is on the bottom. The at bird they're being penalized.
So you believe that if there was a like a federal um, organization, no, and you know, and there wasn't the autonomy of the states, there would be
Yeah,
much better standards.
yeah, but unfortunately, that's, as you know, federal systems doesn't work, right?
Right.
Let's put it this way: can you imagine industry manufacturing would be like Gene Haas, spending millions of dollars every year in education of their future users and workers and programmers on the Haas machines? Can you imagine all manufacturing firms in the US would do that? Where we would be today?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and you know, I mean, it may have something to do with him being American.
Yeah. But that's where the problem is. We don't have pressure from the industry, business, and even service companies like banking, insurance, and everything else. Because if our economy is great and the output is great, the banker's going to make a lots of money too. The insurance people going to make a lots of money too.
Yeah,
I can give you a proof of that, how that works. You heard of Skills USA, right?
I've heard of it.
Okay. There's an organization in all of, just about every industrialized country has their own skills. Swiss skills, 10 out of 10 major supporters, the biggest money providers, right? Out of 10, 9 are service companies, the bankers, because the bankers who is going to bring knows who is going to bring the money in their bank and maybe get a mortgage one day, right? The insurance, the worker is going to have a family, he needs insurance, right? Even the headhunters, because they need material to sell, right?
So you're saying it sounds like what you're saying is that the private companies, the answer is the private companies investing in
Yeah,
society.
they know best. And if they're involved, they're not going to get and hurt. They're going to fight that the education is there. Yeah. The only in Switzerland, the only one company on the 10 which is manufacturing is RUAG. I don't know if you are aware who RUAG is.
I don't know.
No, that's one of the largest defense industry in Europe, owned by the Swiss government, and they have a facility in Florida too. They're building parts of the missile systems.
And they, so that's an example of the Swiss government supporting training and
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We had interesting situation for a few years. The ambassador to Switzerland was very much into training and learning and all that. And the press, you know, they never took ambassadors serious because they're just political assigned and what have you, right?
Hmm.
But she was going to school.
The ambassador from the United States, you said.
Yes,
Yeah.
the ambassador. And they were impressed how she was involved in that. They never expected that because they didn't
So then
see.
what happened with that? Did she gain anything by that, or
Oh, well, she came back.
this was when?
That was 15 years ago,
Oh, okay.
12 years ago. She got a job in Washington as an assistant secretary of labor in charge of training, right? She lasted maybe 9 months or 10 or a year, whatever,
Hmm.
and she went back to California.
Mm.
Couldn't stand it, you know. Obviously, they said it's COVID related, but
Um, you you were telling me before that the the airlines have gotten into training people. Can you explain
yeah,
that?
yeah. Well, you and I and everybody else has been paying the bill to create pilots for our airlines. Air Force and all the defense industry, which needed pilots, they were trained by the defense industry. Okay, so defense industry has changed. Lots of computers and lots of new ways of doing things. They didn't need to
Drones.
train the yeah. They didn't need to train that many pilots anymore. And all the airlines got hurt. They couldn't find because they never worried about creating their own pilots. Now they're doing over the last 5, 6 years. They finally opened their own facilities.
Interesting. And it's been working well.
Well, yes, not too many planes fell down, so far as I know. Yeah,
Yeah.
but on the other hand, talking about airplanes, Boeing. How many people are in Everett? Is it 300,000? Somewhere like that. Okay, per year they graduate about 30 or 40 apprentices. Okay, they have the contract with their workers, with their unions, that's the maximum they can do because they don't want the graduated apprentices at Boeing's. When they graduate, they don't have a job. They have to get in line with everybody else to apply for a job.
Ugh, that company is ridiculous.
Okay, you heard of Pilatus, right? Pilatus Air, the airplanes made in Switzerland.
No, I live under a
No,
rock.
business jet, business jet, and the planes used for by the Red Cross or by hospitals and the transportation of, of people. Pilatus is a very well known, respected company. They have a facility in Colorado. They have about 30 or 40 people working there. They graduate every year 8 apprentices in Colorado. They graduate about 50 or 60 in Switzerland every year.
So you believe that the apprentice system, the old school system, is something that it needs to come back, or something like it.
Definitely something has to be done because the young people have no guidance of what their future will bring and what to do in order to achieve something. And obviously, the biggest problem, um, I know there are lots of people out there who hate me for that. The college industry is not interested in apprenticeship, because if you have a good apprenticeship, the universities or college are going to lose a lots of good students, because a graduated apprentice can make good money. In Switzerland, it's still 60% of the population, I mean, of the educational, the, the, the young people who are at the crossroad, what are going to go, college or apprenticeship? 60% going to go for apprenticeship. Okay. We had a wonderful system in this country, was when the soldiers came back from the Second World War, we created, oh, Jesus, was it? Uh, what do we have to educate all the people coming back? Well, anyway, the system was we offered them seats in the colleges on the newspapers. Uh,
And now the colleges just they want to be luxury items, so they try
right.
not to let
What
people in.
happened is that money the government put in to educate all these uh, uh, people coming out of the services, right, was spent on the universities, built those beautiful stadiums, new facilities, never thinking that you will dry up. Those people not going to come anymore because we don't have wars
Yeah.
anymore, right? And the people from Vietnam, the ones we fought in Vietnam, they didn't want to go to school. They were all messed up. I'm sorry to put it this way, but we know that lots of them were affected by the war. And now the universities, the colleges had empty space. They had to let go tenured professors and everything else. So Washington was very concerned about that. The states were concerned about it because they couldn't see how people are going to get educated.
Yeah.
And that's when all the college interests and the education departments and what have you came together and says, let's create a model. No college, no job.
Hmm.
And that's when everybody and its brother was railroaded into college, where not too long ago, over 50% of the college in the first year dropped out. Over 50%.
That's true.
Now it's down to about 45.
Everybody in our industry loves to hate college. And I understand that colleges are, I think there's a lot of disgusting things about them. How much they cost, the debt, they try to make themselves luxury items. They should let in more people. Um, I agree with all that. That said, I went to college. I thought it was a great thing. I think it's something that shouldn't be totally bashed. And I think, not everybody, as you know, like people are meant to do lots of different things. And maybe I guess I have my opinion is a couple things. One opinion is um, we want people to go into machining, and the people with machining companies don't pay enough.
Yeah,
They just don't. Like,
I agree.
so
I
if
agree.
you I know that money isn't one of the only thing isn't the only thing to make people satisfied in their job, but if you're somebody who's looking for upside and trying to decide what they're going to do, You go, oh, am I going to work hard in a hot, noisy factory? Or maybe it's not noisy, maybe it's not hot, whatever. But still, the upside is low. Second of all, I feel like, I don't know. I mean, I agree the apprenticeship system is a great thing. That said, I feel like in our society, having like a one track thing of this is what you're training to do and this is what you're doing for the rest of your life, that's very like, 1960s and very, I don't know what it's like in Switzerland and Europe. Maybe people are happy with that. I know you, even though you're trained and were an apprentice, you'd never want that. So
Well, I went to college for 2 weeks. Burnley paid for me to go because they wanted to make me a assistant plant manager. And they said I have to have at least an associate degree. So I went to the Bridgeport University. I went there for 2 weeks, and after 2 weeks, I said, forget it.
right, I know, but I mean, there's something to the idea of being learning how to think, getting life experience. So then later you can go on and do lots of things.
Yeah, you have to realize I am not against college because the workers out there, the working stiffs out there, prove also correct when we said college is good. Because drive by any college, the parking lots are full at night. You know that, right? Who are those people? These are the working stiffs who get their degree. The electrician who's going to get his electrical degree, he's going to be a wonderful engineer. The machinist, all these people who go and get their degree with the work experience they have, they're the top of the crop. Period. And if we could build on that, we would make a long things much better.
Yeah, that's the question we need to answer. Um,
The,
Paul, unfortunately, I got like 5 more minutes and then I have to
yeah,
go. But go on. What were you going to say?
I wanted to mention we all talk about STEM, right?
Yeah.
But less than half of the states have STEM education. My son went to STEM. Okay. Now that shows you that there is just no respect for hands-on work. Robotics, the same thing. You know, there's less than 50 states, less than half of, but no, it's 30. They say 30 or 34 states which have robotics.
Yeah, it's incredible.
The students from who have gone through STEM and robotics, they have a certain knowledge which helps them to fit into a job. But we don't provide it. We only provide it to half of the nation. How could you do that?
So, what, as I wrap this up, what's next for Paul Huber? I know there's a next. I know you're not going into the sunset.
I am seeing at my age, I see myself continue what I'm doing in about 5 6 years ago. In about 5 6 years, I'm gonna have a big dumpster out there where everything I have in here is gonna go into it. You know, uh, when we moved from 11,000 square feet to the 800 square feet I have behind me here,
11,000 square feet to 800 square feet?
yeah, we had dumpsters, big gondolas. We filled 5 of them. with machines, working machines. We just dumped them in there because we had somebody came him up and walked into my office, and he offered to buy the company. I mean the building, because he wanted that building bad. He gave me a real good price,
Hmm.
and he wanted to take a mortgage out, and I said no way in hell, because I don't want to go through the phase one, phase two, and whatever else comes after that.
Sure.
So
Sure.
let's make a cash deal, period. And I got my cash deal. And Ted, unfortunately, at that time, uh, became very sick.
And then what? And then after the 5 years, then what are you going to do? You don't know.
I don't know.
Figure
But you know what?
things will figure it out.
I'm probably going to travel. I told Nanette already, my wife, I says, that's going to come once you retire. We're going to travel. You may have to push me in a car, in a wheelchair.
Oh, so you are going to retire, the R word.
Oh, yes, I will. Yeah. But my wife is very happy with the job she's doing. She says about it in another 3 or 4 years, she's probably going to retire.
Paul, this was awesome. And thank you so much. And I look forward to talking to you about all kinds of things.
I'm very happy you gave me the opportunity to speak my mind.
You're good at it.
I get on some people's nerves, but I
You're
talk fast.
real. You're real, and you have such serendipity in your life, and it's incredible. So I thank you.